Welcome in to the Ravens Rundown, powered by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones here with you. Happy to have you with us. Coming up on today's show, we are going to go over the Ravens' perfect free agency plan. I'm going to break down 10 free agent potential targets for the Ravens, and we're factoring both need and the best players involved for those positions. We'll go over all that and more coming up in just a few moments from right now. Before we do, I want to make sure not only that you're subscribed here to the Ravens Rundown for daily Baltimore Ravens coverage, like no one else is on the internet, but also that you have notifications turned on so you never miss a moment. Go to the Settings app on your smartphone, scroll down, tap YouTube, tap Notifications, and turn on Allow Notifications. That way you're the first to know when we bring you a video with the latest happenings on your favorite team. So here's what we'll do. The Noti Gang, if you got your noties on, whether you already have them on or you're just now turning them on, go ahead and once you turn on those notifications, let me know in the comments section, spam Noti Gang, and we're going to shout everybody out coming up later on with everyone that's a part of the Noti Gang coming up on a later show. Today, we are talking about free agency for your Baltimore Ravens, as NFL free agency is just around the corner, and it's a very pivotal offseason for the Ravens to get things right. Now, granted, they are kind of limited when it comes to salary cap space. The number that the Ravens have right now, according to the folks at Spotrac, is less than $30 million at this point. So not a whole lot of money to spend with that in mind, so something to think about there as we go through these players. Let's start with the obvious one, Lamar Jackson, who is technically a free agent. Reports earlier this week were that the Ravens plan to franchise tag Lamar Jackson. They're likely not going to get a long-term extension done before the deadline rolls around for Lamar, before that franchise tag deadline gets there. So they'll likely franchise tag Lamar. And then at that point, you would continue the negotiations for a longer deal at that point going forward. So Lamar, we know the numbers are good when it comes to Lamar Jackson. Even last season when he missed 5 games, he was still really good. He was having a fantastic year, in particular as a runner as well. So with that said, Lamar, you're still the guy here. You got to get a long-term deal done. A franchise tag and all that is simply not good enough. I am of the belief, I've said this before and I'll say it again, I don't think Lamar's playing on that franchise tag. This is a tag is not going to get the job done. You're going to have to get a long-term extension done. He's your franchise quarterback. He's the face of this team. You need to keep him around. So with that, get your votes in. What is the biggest priority for the Ravens to sign in free agency? For me, it's getting Lamar a contract. I know there's some of you out there that want the Ravens to move on from Lamar Jackson. So if you're part of that crowd, then what's your answer for that? Let me know either way. Is it Lamar or is it something else? What is the biggest priority for the Baltimore Ravens in free agency? Tell me in the comments section below. Now let's rattle off some wide receivers here. These are the best ones that are going to be on the market as of right now, and we will go through them piece by piece. Obviously, you can't get all of them, but if you can get at least 1 or 2, that would be fantastic. Allen Lazard of the Green Bay Packers is one of those guys who, even though the Packers had a down year, his numbers still weren't bad. 60 catches, 788 yards, 6 touchdowns. That's still a lot better than any receiver the Ravens have right now, and the Ravens would be lucky to have Allen Lazard. And think about this, the Packers might be without Aaron Rodgers there in Green Bay, so there could be a potential opportunity where Green Bay doesn't want to pay Allen Lazard, and you could see him make that move to Baltimore. Another guy, Jakobi Meyers. Now, this one, I think it's less likely of him actually leaving New England. I think Bill Belichick and company realize how good of a player they have in Jakobi Meyers, that he'll likely stay in New England, but if he's out there, Jakobi Meyers has been very consistent, coming off a season where he had 67 catches, 804 yards, and 6 touchdowns. A good possession receiver, Jakobi Meyers is. And I know that the Ravens have done a lot in the short passing game, right? And we don't know what this offense is going to look like yet because they haven't hired an offensive coordinator. But if Lamar is still the quarterback, or if you have a young quarterback next year, if you can have a dependable receiver like Jakobi Meyers, that would fit. Then there's another guy, JuJu Smith-Schuster of the Kansas City Chiefs. You'll be seeing him play in the Super Bowl here for the Kansas City Chiefs within the next week or so. And a lot was made in Kansas City this year about the Chiefs losing Tyreek Hill, that they traded him to the Miami Dolphins. Where was that production going to go? And they signed JuJu for a pretty reasonable contract this past year. And JuJu had a solid year, close to 1,000 yards receiving, 78 receptions. They were never going to be able to just replace Tyreek Hill with one guy, but Kansas City was effectively able to use a few guys, including JuJu, kind of leading the way to pick up the void left from Tyreek Hill. And so we've seen him be successful with different quarterbacks, from Ben Roethlisberger right here in this division in the AFC North to now Patrick Mahomes. Pair him up with another quarterback like Lamar Jackson potentially, and you might have a good fit in JuJu Smith-Schuster. So I know that these three receivers, none of them are, I would say, your Pro Bowl, All-Pro caliber type wide receivers, but they're all very solid, and all three of them would be an improvement for the Baltimore Ravens as far as I'm concerned. If you only could pick one, though, one of these receivers, which one would you bring to the Baltimore Ravens? Are you going with Allen Lazard? Are you going with Jakobi Meyers? Or is it JuJu? Here's what I want you to do in the comment section. If it's Lazard, type AL. If it's Jakobi Meyers, type JM. If it's JuJu, type JuJu. Let me know in the comment section who you would pick between these receivers in the comment section below. Today's show is presented by BetUS, the exclusive sportsbook partner of Chat Sports. If you go to chatsports.com/bet, enter the promo code chat125, you'll get a 125% deposit bonus. Put $100 down, you get $125 to spend for free. We talk all the time around here that it's not just NFL or college football you can bet on. You can bet on the NBA or college basketball, including this matchup here between James Madison and Old Dominion. What a game that we have here. I'm sure there's some intrigue from the flock out there about this one. I got to tell you, don't crush me on this, some of you out there. I like the underdog, Old Dominion, here. I think Old Dominion can find a way to get it done against JMU here as a 1.5-point underdog. Over-under, 139.5. I'm not sure about that, but I do feel good about Old Dominion as an underdog getting the job done. What say you? What's your bet going to be? You going to bet on this game? You going to bet on Old Dominion? You going to bet on James Madison? Or maybe it's the Super Bowl or NBA or college basketball, whatever it may be. Even if you want to bet on this game, you can do so with our official sportsbook partner at BetUS. Go to chatsports.com/bet, promo code chat125 to get your bets in today. Let's go to another Ravens player. That's Ben Powers, offensive guard for Baltimore. And it was a tight competition this year for the starting guard spots for the Ravens. And Ben Powers ultimately came out on top. And Ben Powers had a solid season, and he's one of the best offensive guards on the market. This is a guy that if you're the Ravens, you cannot let leave. You have to bring him back this year. Overall grade, 62.9, but the pass blocking grade in particular was outstanding for Ben Powers at 62.9, or at 86.5. Run block grade at 50.8, and the pressures number for Ben Powers was 12. So Ben Powers, a guy that I would love to see back with the Baltimore Ravens. No reason why he shouldn't remain in town as far as I'm concerned. Now, if he were to move on, or if you need other options at the offensive guard spot, another guy potentially is Dalton Risner of the Denver Broncos. You may recall his time at Kansas State, where he had a really good career with the Wildcats, and now he has been very reliable for the Denver Broncos in his stretch there in Denver, and he has been quite the teammate, quite the leader, a spokesman for that Denver team. And with all the problems that the Broncos went through this past year, Dalton Risner was not one of those things. You can see his pass block grade, 72.6. Run block grade, not as good, 53.4. Overall grade, 61.1. Pressures allowed, about 29 was the number there for Dalton Risner. I'd prefer to keep Ben Powers around, but if you have to go to another option, potentially Dalton Risner could be that guy. Let's talk defense now for the Ravens at the cornerback spot. Don't think you're probably going to bring Marcus Peters back. as he goes to free agency, looking for other options potentially. James Bradberry from the Philadelphia Eagles could be your guy to play alongside Marlon Humphrey. James Bradberry, he'll be playing in the Super Bowl here against the Kansas City Chiefs in the next couple days, and Bradberry has had a nice bounce-back season. Remember, he was picked up this past year by Philadelphia from New York, and that move was kind of under the radar of some sorts. And what he's been able to do is been a dominant force on that defense with 3 interceptions, 17 pass breakups, and 44 tackles. The thing that is interesting about Bradberry is this Philadelphia defense. If you've watched the Eagles at all this year, then you understand how great that pass rush is for the Philadelphia Eagles, a historically good pass rush. We know that the Ravens have built this defense where they want to get pressure on the quarterback. And so I think what we've seen in Philly is the pass rush has created opportunities that James Bradberry has capitalized in coverage to get interceptions and make some big plays. 17 pass breakups. That's a pretty hefty number there. I think if he were to come to Baltimore, you'd want the same thing where you invest in your pass rush, you get some pass rushers there to open up things for guys like James Bradberry. To me, that sounds like a good combination of sorts there with Bradberry. Name a player the Ravens should sign. Tell me in the comments section. We got more names to get to here in just a second. But give me a player or two that comes to mind that you think should be wearing a Baltimore Ravens uniform here in 2023. Give me a name or two who you'd like to see join the roster. A few more names here. This guy a little more expensive. That would be Marcus Davenport, the edge rusher from the New Orleans Saints. And he is going to be highly sought after as he's just now really entering the prime of his career. And he was kind of underutilized this year by New Orleans. I blame more the system that was in place and the problems that were going on with the Saints more so than what Marcus Davenport was able or not able to do necessarily, but a terrific talent. He feels like a Raven, but not necessarily sure if the money matches there, but if you can get him, that'd be great. Another guy in-house, Justin Houston. I know that Justin Houston's older now, but Justin Houston is coming off a really good season. And if Justin Houston still wants to be around, as far as I'm concerned, he deserves that right to do so. He had 9.5 sacks this year, which was one of, if not the highest numbers for the Baltimore Ravens, even at 34 years old, which is just insane to talk about. He was a force to be reckoned with all season long. Obviously, Justin Houston can't be your long-term solution, but if you don't find your long-term solution this offseason, then bring Justin Houston back. At the very least, he's a very good teammate, and he can help train and coach up the younger guys at that position as well. Justin Houston, to me, just makes a lot of sense. And then at the right tackle spot, you know, when you looked at the Ravens this year, there was inconsistencies at the tackle spots. And obviously, you've invested all that money in Ronnie Stanley. He's not going anywhere. But if you could get some help on the other side of that right tackle spot potentially, Kaleb McGary, remember the name, Kaleb McGary from the Atlanta Falcons could be your guy. Don't know if Atlanta is going to spend what it takes to keep McGary around, but I got to tell you, these numbers from PFF are just off the charts. And we talked about the other offensive linemen on today's show were more of pass blockers. If this new offense still wants to run the football heavily, Kaleb McGary would be a natural fit for Baltimore with a run block grade of 91.6, overall grade of 86.6, 19 pressures, had over 1,000 snaps last year. Kaleb McGary, a lot of teams are going to be interested in Kaleb McGary, but I got to tell you, he would be somebody that, oh my gosh, you'd be excited to have on your team, potentially speaking, if you can bring him in to the Baltimore Ravens. So to recap, potential free agent targets for the Ravens: Lamar, Allen Lazard, Jakobi Meyers, JuJu, Ben Powers, your first 5. Your next 5, Dalton Risner, James Bradberry, Marcus Davenport, Justin Houston, and then Kaleb McGary as the next guys in line. Before we go, want to know, Who do you think the Ravens will sign this offseason? I asked you earlier who you want the Ravens to sign. Now it's time to give us a little prediction. Who do you think the Ravens will sign this offseason? Let us know in the comment section below. Until we see you next time, give me a follow on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Tyler Jones Live, and I will see you on the other side. Thanks for joining us here on the Ravens Rundown.